MAMADEE stood in the center of the set like she owned it, her voice already cutting through the chatter of producers, cast, and crew. She wasn't speaking softly. She wasn't whispering, she was calling Britney out loud enough for every mic to pick it up. You think you can just walk up in here, play wifey to my son, and trap him with a baby? Girl, you not family. You a storyline. The producers exchanged looks but didn't dare interrupt. They knew moments like this were ratings gold. Britney froze for a second, her manicured hand brushing over her still visible bump. Then she turned with a smirk so sharp it could have cut the tension in half. First of all, MAMADEE, nobody's trying to be your little fairy tale daughter-in-law. Second of all, I don't need to trap Scrappy. He begged for me. And third, don't act like you some perfect queen when everybody knows you've ruined every woman he ever loved. Erica, Bambi, Shay, all of them ran from you. Maybe it's you who's the curse, not me. That last sentence hit like a brick. Gasps went around the room. Scrappy, sitting off to the side in a hoodie with his arms crossed, kept his head down, jaw tight. He didn't move. Didn't say a word. The silence from him made it worse. It was like he was letting the women fight his battle. Like he knew stepping in now would blow everything apart. MAMADEE's eyes lit with fire. She took a step closer, her heels clicking against the floor. Like gunshots? Don't you dare put my name in the same sentence as them low down. Good-for-nothing heifers. I built my son's name. I protected him when the world turned its back. And I'll be damned if some little girl with a Fashion Nova discount code thinks she gon' rewrite history. You pregnant? So what? Babies don't keep no man. You ain't the first, and you sure won't be the last. Britney laughed, that mocking laugh that made the entire room tighten. And you wonder why he don't even listen to you no more. You old, bitter, and pressed. You want Scrappy to yourself. You don't want him to have no wife, no baby, no future. Cause deep down, you can't stand not being the center of his world. That's why you stay chasing cameras. That's why you stay in his business. You not his protector, you his curse. And I promise you, this baby gone change everything, whether you like it or not. The words "this baby" sent something snapping inside MAMADEE. She lunged forward, shoving past a producer who tried to hold her back. Don't you disrespect me, girl. She screamed, reaching out and grabbing Britney's arm with a grip so strong the younger woman yelped. The room exploded, chairs scraped, crew members shouted, cameras zoomed in. Nobody knew whether to break it up or keep filming. Britney staggered, jerking free, but the shove was harder than it looked. Her heel caught the edge of a rug, and she stumbled back, hitting the side of a chair with her hip. The sound of her scream cut through the chaos. My stomach. She cried, her hands clutching her belly as she doubled over. The entire set froze in a heartbeat. Even MAMADEE, still fuming, stepped back in shock. Scrappy shot up so fast his chair toppled. Yo, what the F*********. He shouted, rushing to her side. Brit, you good? Somebody call the doctor. Don't just stand there. His voice cracked, a mix of panic and rage, as crew scrambled for phones. The producers, finally realizing this wasn't just drama, swarmed in. A medic was called. Someone grabbed water. And a production assistant ushered cameras closer while another shouted for them to be turned off. The conflict between this is TV and this is real life was written on every face in the room. Britney was crying, clutching herself, sweat breaking across her forehead. It hurts, she sobbed, and the sound silenced even the nosiest cast. The fight had turned into something darker, something nobody could spin as just entertainment anymore. Within minutes, producers were rushing Britney out toward the waiting vans, with Scrappy at her side. MAMADEE was left behind, trembling with rage but also with shock, muttering under her breath about never meaning to hurt no baby. The rest of the cast whispered in the corners, some pointing fingers, others shaking their heads. By the time the vans pulled off toward the hospital, the story had already leaked. Someone on set had tweeted, "Emergency on Love and Hip Hop set. Pregnant cast member rushed to hospital after violent fight. Pray for her." Within an hour, blogs had screenshots, hashtags like #PrayForBritney were trending, and the internet had already chosen sides. Some blamed MAMADEE for her temper, saying she had gone too far and should be held accountable for putting her hands on a pregnant woman. Others claimed Britney was messy from the start, stressing herself out with drama when she should have been protecting her unborn child. But one thing was clear, this wasn't just reality TV anymore. This was a tragedy unfolding in real time. The silence after the hospital announcement hit harder than any punch could have. For hours, there was no music, no chatter, no staged confessionals. The cast group chat that usually exploded with side comments was dead quiet. Everyone knew the weight of what had just happened, and nobody wanted to be the first to put it into words. But by midnight, the story had already escaped the set and spread like wildfire. Screenshots of nurses whispering in hallways, grainy images of Britney being wheeled into a private room, and a leaked text message thread between a production assistant and a gossip blogger painted the picture no one could control. The headline, "MAMADEE accused in Britney miscarriage," flashed across phones in Atlanta, New York, and Los Angeles before the Frost family even finished their dinner. Scrappy's face was nowhere to be seen, but his name was all over every trending topic. And for the first time in years, it wasn't because of music, a tour, or even a fight. It was because of a tragedy too raw to spin. Scrappy hadn't left the hospital since Britney was admitted. He sat slumped in the waiting room, hoodie up, hands clasped, the weight of the moment pressing down like bricks. Cameras had been forced outside, but paparazzi filled the parking lot like vultures, waiting for their shot. His phone buzzed non-stop calls from producers, texts from other castmates, even DM requests from strangers telling him to leave his family for good. He ignored it all. The only thing on his mind was the sound Britney made when she fell back. In that studio, high-pitched, terrified, followed by silence that would replay in his mind for the rest of his life. When the doctor confirmed she had lost the baby, he didn't move. He didn't cry. He just sat there, staring through the words, numb to everything but the reality that his future had shifted in a way he couldn't undo. Meanwhile, MAMADEE wasn't apologizing. She sat at home in her living room, a glass of wine in hand, venting to anyone who would listen. To her, Britney had been playing a game from the beginning, using her son for fame, dragging him into mess after mess. "That girl ain't nothing but trouble," she said, pacing the floor, her voice caught between anger and denial. She wanted a storyline. She got one. "But don't you dare put this on me. I didn't take no baby away." Her words echoed online as quickly as they came out of her mouth, thanks to a cousin who live-streamed part of her rant. Instead of defending her, the internet turned brutal. Hashtags like #MAMADEE cancelled and #justice for Britney began trending. What MAMADEE thought was strength came across as coldness, and her reputation began to collapse in real time. But Britney wasn't silent either. The very next morning, she posted from her hospital bed. No VH1 filter. No carefully lit scene, just raw emotion. Eyes swollen, voice shaky. She held her phone up and said, "I lost my baby last night, and I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like it wasn't because of stress, because of attacks, because of being humiliated on camera. I was carrying life inside me, and they took that from me." Her words hit harder than any headline could. By the time the clip hit the Shade Room, it had already been shared by thousands. Fans flooded her comments with prayers and outrage. Some begging her to press charges, others urging her to cut Scrappy off completely. The sympathy was overwhelming, and for the first time, Britney had the public on her side. Whether she had planned it or not, she had become the face of tragedy and MAMADEE, the villain who caused it. VH1 panicked. Behind closed doors, producers scrambled. What had started as explosive reality TV had spiraled into a real-life crisis. Sponsors threatened to pull ads. Legal teams started drafting statements. The footage of MAMADEE shoving Britney was now considered evidence, and no one knew if airing it would destroy the show or save it. One executive argued it had to be cut completely. Another claimed burying it would only make the backlash worse when it inevitably leaked. But even as they argued, the clip was already out there. A staff member had sold the raw camera angle to a gossip site, and by lunchtime, millions of people had watched the exact moment MAMADEE lunged. The shove, the scream, the fall, it was all there, raw and unedited. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds, with fans and critics tearing into every frame. Some said Britney exaggerated the fall. Others swore MAMADEE knew exactly what she was doing. Nobody agreed on the truth, but everyone agreed on one thing: VH1 couldn't hide anymore. As all this unfolded, Scrappy finally broke. Standing outside the hospital, surrounded by flashing cameras and shouted questions, he snapped. "Y'all wanna know the truth?" he shouted, his voice cracking with rage. "My mama went too far. She can't keep controlling everything I do, every woman I'm with, every move I make. And now my child is gone." His words cut through the noise like a blade. He didn't mean to throw his mother under the bus, but the grief was too heavy. The clip of his breakdown spread across platforms, and suddenly the narrative shifted again. This wasn't just about Britney versus MAMADEE, it was about a son torn between his blood and the family he was trying to build. Fans rallied behind him, urging him to finally break free, to put his mother in the background and stand on his own as a man. The pressure was unbearable, and the cameras caught it all. But the storm was far from over. Within days, whispers of a lawsuit began swirling. Britney's family had hired an attorney, and papers were reportedly being drafted to hold MAMADEE legally responsible for wrongful death. The miscarriage wasn't just a tragedy anymore, it was about to become a courtroom battle. VH1 braced itself for subpoenas. Scrappy braced himself for depositions. And MAMADEE doubled down, swearing she would never step foot in a courtroom as a defendant. Yet deep down, everyone knew it was only a matter of time before lawyers, judges, and juries got involved. And when that happened, reality TV would no longer control the narrative, the law would. The stage was set for a war that no producer could script, no editor could shape, and no cast member could escape. What started as a family argument on camera had spiraled into something darker, something irreversible. And as the dust settled over the hospital parking lot and the internet kept spinning, one truth remained clear. This was no longer just a storyline, it was a tragedy that would haunt every name tied to it. The hospital smelled like lemon cleanser and unanswered questions. Britney stared at the clock above the television, counting seconds the way people count debts knowing they can't be repaid. The nurse had dimmed the lights and left a plastic cup of water on the tray, the way nurses do when there's nothing else to say. Rhea sat curled in the visitor chair, shoes off, hoodie up, a soft human shield against the cold of the room. Every so often Rhea would reach over and squeeze Britney's fingers. And Britney would squeeze back, as if they were sending secret messages through the bones. I'm here. I'm here. To dot down the hall, Scrappy met with a hospital social worker, whose voice was kind but careful. Grief doesn't obey the camera's schedule, she said, handing him a list of counselors who specialized in perinatal loss. He nodded, not trusting his mouth to shape the words he needed. He signed a release to limit information shared with media, then pressed his thumb to his phone to scroll a feed he didn't want to see: clips, edits, accusations, consolations, strangers praying in his comments, strangers cursing in his DM. He typed and erased 3 different statements. The only thing he finally sent was to Amani: I love you. I'll call as soon as I can. Her reply came fast: I'm okay. You okay? He stared at you okay. Until the words lost shape. Outside, security had put up a rope line, but it only turned the sidewalk into a stage. A blogger read comments into his phone like a prayer book. A woman held a handmade sign: Protect Black Mothers. A man across the street muttered that people should mind their business. A pair of teenagers filmed a TikTok and then deleted it because it felt wrong and because the security guard's stare said try it. The city always quick to choose a side. Split like wet wood, half heat, half smoke. MAMADEE hadn't slept. She sat at her kitchen table in a robe and earrings. The contradiction of a woman ready for war and a woman afraid to leave the house. Her phone lit up with missed calls: producers, cousins, a pastor from a church she visited twice and tagged 10 times. A text from a number she didn't recognize said, I hope you rot. And another one 3 bubbles later said, I'm praying for you. She poured coffee and didn't drink it. She started an Instagram live and didn't go through with it. She practiced an apology in the microwave door and hated the way it sounded. She dialed Scrappy and hung up before it rang. She dialed again, and this time it connected. MAMADEE. Baby Scrappy, not right now, ma. Silence. She swallowed, pride burning like a swallowed match. MAMADEE. I didn't mean Scrappy, not right now. The line clicked. She stared at her reflection, saw a queen without a kingdom, and closed her eyes like maybe the dark could give her back the right words. By noon, VH1 Legal had sent the first set of emails with more bold than verbs: hold, do, not distribute, potential liability, counsel review. A junior producer slid into a conference room seat and tried to vanish. An executive clicked play on the raw multicam angle, and then clicked pause on the exact frame the shove became a fall. Can we blur this? Somebody asked. Like pixels could wash away. Wait, we can't blur grief. The head of standards said, and for a full minute no one spoke. A different war started online. Hashtag Stand With Britney trended alongside hashtag Hold MAMADEE Accountable. A doula collective posted a thread about stress and pregnancy, about how words can bruise, how public humiliation is a toxin. A podcaster countered with intent and accident and personal responsibility, and TV is not real life. It didn't matter. The feed had already chosen the shape of the story. A mother's rage. A woman's loss. A man stuck between a bloodline and a future that crumbled in his hands. In the afternoon, a hospital chaplain knocked and asked Britney if she wanted a moment of prayer or silence or both. She picked silence, and the chaplain honored it, sitting without speaking for 6 slow minutes that felt like a blanket. When the chaplain left, Britney finally turned to Rhea. Britney, what am I supposed to be now? Rhea, alive. And then, whatever comes next. Back at the house, Imani wrote a note and didn't send it. Grown-ups keep telling me to stay out of it, but it keeps walking into the room anyway. She pulled on her hoodie and took a long walk around the block, counting the cracks in the sidewalk like verses. A neighbor waved, she waved back. Sometimes surviving is just walking slow enough that your heart can catch up. By evening, Scrappy asked a nurse to wheel him to the chapel because he didn't trust his legs. He sat in the back row and breathed with the air conditioner. There's a way men cry when they're alone that television cannot hold and language cannot name. When he finished, he wiped his face with the sleeve of his hoodie and whispered, "I'm sorry," to the rafters, and to the empty seat beside him, and to the timeline he would never get back. A push alert went out at 7:42 p.m. Britney issues statement from hospital. The text was short, not crafted by a team, written in the voice of someone who just wanted the noise to stop. I lost my baby. I need time to heal. Please respect my space and stop tagging me in the video. She turned her phone face down and asked the nurse if the hallway lights always hummed like that. Only when they're tired, the nurse said, and Britney nodded, like lights could be tired and so could she. The next morning, MAMADEE tried to visit. Security checked the list and shook his head. Family only, he said, not unkindly. I am his family, she answered. I mean hers, he clarified. She looked at the floor. And for a second, she wasn't loud or legendary, she was just somebody's mother who had run out of places to stand. She went home and sat with an old photo album, the kind with plastic pages that crackle, and stared at pictures of Scrappy with cake on his face. I did everything wrong and everything right, she told the album. And I don't know which is which today. Her phone rang. Attorney, unknown number. She answered and held the receiver like it might bite. We'd like to discuss potential exposure, the voice said, legal vowels, smooth as marble. She said she'd call back. After the click, she opened notes and typed, I'm sorry. Then she backspaced it and typed, I never meant it. Then she backspaced again and typed nothing. VH1 called a mandatory safety briefing. A retired security director showed a slide. Escalation paths, another slide. Latent risk factors. The room felt like a fire drill after the building already burned. From now on, the line producer announced, if voices hit level red, we cut. A PA raised a hand. Who decides red? No one had a clean answer. Imani asked to see her father alone. They sat on a bench outside the hospital, under a tree that pretended it wasn't listening. She took his hand. Imani, I don't want you to hate Grandma. And I don't want you to hate Britney. I just want you to breathe. Scrappy smiled, the kind that's more of a wince. You too grown for me, he said. Somebody gotta be, she replied. And they both laughed through tears. They didn't want to show each other. The first mediation happened in a beige conference room with a bowl of peppermints that looked like decorations from a different decade. Britney sat with Rhea and her lawyer. Scrappy sat between his manager and a silent pen. MAMADEE walked in last, eyes lowered, lips pressed. The mediator woman, old enough to know the shape of pride, began with rules of engagement. One voice, at a time, no interruptions, no personal insults. Take breaks when needed. Mediator, we're here to try to draw a line between harm that was done and harm we can prevent. Britney spoke first, not loud, not for cameras. You put your hands on me, she said to MAMADEE. You called me names. You treated me like a prop, and when I fell, you stepped back like gravity was my fault. Her voice tightened. I lost everything I was planning. I don't need you to like me. I needed you not to touch me. MAMADEE's hands flinched, wanting a podium she didn't have. I never meant, she started. Mediator, intention and impact are different rooms. We have to walk through both. MAMADEE exhaled. I didn't mean to hurt no baby, she said. I was trying to scare you away from my son. That's the truth. I ain't proud of it. I didn't think my hands could do that much wrong. Her voice cracked around the last word. She reached for the tissue box and missed. Scrappy finally spoke. I need both of y'all to hear me, he said, leaning into the table. I'm not nobody's storyline no more. If we gon' do family, it gotta stop being a show first. He turned to his mother. Ma, I love you. You raised me through hell. Then he turned to Britney. I loved what we was trying to build, but I can't rebuild a house while it's still on fire. It wasn't a resolution. It was a marker on a map. We were here. Outside, the air tasted like rain. A producer, waiting by the elevator, looked up from his phone. We can cover the counseling. If you want, he offered to Scrappy, like guilt could be itemized. I'll handle it, Scrappy said, and kept walking. A week later, court, not a trial, not yet, but a request for a protective order and a schedule of no-contact boundaries. The judge, a woman whose patience looked like granite, listened to 3 versions of the same moment. She made no speeches. She granted the order with the pragmatism of a surgeon stitching skin. No in-person contact without counsel present. No social media commentary about the other parties. No approach within 300 feet on set, offset, or any public venue. Violations will be met with contempt. The gavel kissed the wood. No applause, no gasps. Just the shuffle of consequences. VH1 drafted a chyron for the episode that would inevitably air. The following footage depicts conflict that escalated beyond our safety protocols. Viewer discretion is advised. The standards team pushed for a black screen and a content warning. Marketing pushed for a trailer. Legal pushed for redactions that made the scene feel like a confession under a heavy marker. In the end, they split the difference. A title card. Muted audio at the peak. A cut to aftermath. A hotline at the end. It satisfied nobody and protected everybody just enough. An editor sat in a dark bay at 2:11 a.m., looping the 2 seconds before the fall, asking himself if there was a cut that turned regret into lesson. There wasn't. He walked to the vending machine, bought peanut M&Ms, came back, and cut to Imani's earlier confession instead. I'm allowed to be a kid. He let the sentence land. He let the music breathe. Sometimes the most responsible thing you can do is point your camera at the person who didn't want to be there in the first place. The memorial wasn't announced. Britney and Rhea drove to a quiet river with 2 paper lanterns and a small bunch of wildflowers. Scrappy parked 2 cars back and waited until they were done, then walked down alone with a folded note in his pocket. Britney didn't turn around. When she heard his footsteps, she knew the sound of his shoes. They stood shoulder to shoulder without speaking and watched a leaf spin in place, where the water stopped arguing with the rocks. Scrappy, I wrote something, he said, holding the paper like it was hot. I ain't gonna read it out loud. Just he said it under a smooth stone. Britney. Okay. They watched 2 boys run past chasing a soccer ball. The sound of their laughter proof that noise could be holy. When it got cold, Britney pulled her sweater tighter. Rhea returned from the car with a thermos, poured tea into paper cups. They drank like strangers at a bus stop. Polite, careful, aware of the weight of proximity. MAMADEE didn't come. She sat at her table and lit a candle, the tall kind from the corner store with a saint printed on the side. I don't know the right prayer, she told the flame. So I'll just sit here until you tell me to stand up. She turned off her phone. The quiet edged in like water under a door. 2 statements went out the next day. From Britney, I'm taking time away from filming to heal and to find a voice that doesn't have to shout to be heard. Please stop sharing the clip. From Scrappy, I'm stepping back from public appearances to focus on family and my mental health. Thanks for the love. Please give us space. MAMADEE posted nothing for once. The absence was its own headline. The network pivoted mid-season. More confessionals about boundaries. Fewer stunt scenes. A mental health counselor on retainer and on camera. Cynics called it damage control. Cynics were not wrong. But a few younger producers took notes anyway and started building call sheets that accounted for heart rate, not just coverage. One of them taped a line above a monitor. If it's unsafe in your stomach, it's unsafe for the show. Imani painted her nails black and then chipped the polish off during algebra. She wrote a poem for extra credit and turned it in without a name. My city loves a siren, and I want to love a song. Sometimes I stand in the doorway and let the weather be wrong. The teacher wrote, beautiful in the margin, and didn't know who to return it to. Imani didn't need it back. She had already memorized the parts that tasted like medicine. 2 months later, mediation again, a smaller room, a softer rug, a bowl of green grapes no one touched. MAMADEE slid an envelope across the table. "I wrote something I ain't going to read out loud," she said, echoing her son without knowing it. The letter was part apology, part inventory, part "I don't know how to be different, but I'm going to try." Britney read it in silence, then folded it in half. "I can't forgive you today," she said. "But thank you for writing something that didn't try to win." MAMADEE nodded. It was not absolution. It was a hand released without yanking away. The reunion rescheduled, rescripted, rewired, looked like a civics class taught by ghosts. Couch spacing wider. Security present but not performative. Mics clipped lower, voices pitched lower. The host asked chewy questions and let the pauses be long. Scrappy spoke carefully, words like stepping stones across a river he didn't want to fall into. Britney spoke softly and didn't look at monitors. MAMADEE spoke briefly and then chose silence with the dignity of a woman who finally understood that every sentence has a cost. The crowd applauded at the end, not because anyone won, but because people had managed not to burn the room down. In the edit, they let the credits roll over a black screen with resources, grief groups, perinatal loss support, hotlines, a paragraph about consent and conflict, a promise that safety protocols had changed. The promise was a beginning, not a warranty. Life moved not on. But with Scrappy went back to the studio, alone at night, recording into a mic he didn't post about. He sampled the chapel air conditioner and built a beat that sounded like forgiveness walking up a staircase. He named the track, Weather Wrong, and didn't release it. Some songs are only for the room. Britney kept her curtains open more, not less. She watered a stubborn plant that refused to die and smiled when a new blade pushed through the soil. She bought a planner and left half the days blank on purpose. She texted Rhea memes late at night and didn't feel guilty for laughing. She learned the names of her grief, and when it tried to sneak up on her, she said them out loud like she was answering roll call. MAMADEE started therapy on a Tuesday. The therapist didn't treat her like a villain or a victim. The therapist asked about little D before the diamonds. About how silence felt in her mother's house. About what it meant to love a son so hard you iron his future until the fabric shines and tears. "I don't want to be a story anymore," MAMADEE said, hands twisting a tissue into a rope. "I want to be a person who gets invited to hold the baby and doesn't make it about me." The therapist nodded. They put a plan on paper, boundaries as sentences, not knives. Apologies that arrive early, not late. Exits that look like grace, not victory laps. The city kept being itself, loud, generous, nosy, miraculous. A barber argued with a baker about who had the best lemon pound cake. A DJ dropped a set so tight a whole room forgot their phones. A grandmother clapped offbeat in a park, and no one corrected her because joy doesn't need a tempo. Somewhere, someone watched the episode and decided to put the camera down and hold a hand instead. Somewhere else, someone posted the clip again with a recycled caption, "The world is a river that carries both." 6 weeks later, title cards, Britney has taken a leave from filming. She's focusing on her health and beginning a private healing program recommended by her doctor. Scrappy remains off the road. He and Imani have been spending weekends together, phones off, pancakes on. MAMADEE began weekly therapy and has agreed to the court's boundaries. She has not posted about the incident since her first mediation. VH1 implemented new escalation protocols and on-set mental health support. The network donated to 3 local organizations supporting Black maternal health. One last scene. Late afternoon. Golden light, careless and perfect. Scrappy and Imani sit on a stoop sharing a paper tray of fries. No dialogue. A neighbor's radio plays an old love song through a cracked window. Imani leans her head on his shoulder. He kisses the top of her hair and looks out at a street that owes him nothing and gives him this anyway, an ordinary minute that doesn't ask to be turned into content. Fade to black dot, and then, because some endings deserve to be quiet, no music. Just a beat of silence long enough for the room you're in to feel different than it did before.